Hello, I'm Jonathan. I'm from the Caribbean. I love the color yellow. I got into production about a year and a half ago after the birth of our son. I realized I had no time between him and a very demanding job. So I was like, okay, I can still hit save and return to whatever tomorrow, next week. And I could put on headphones and not disturb the beat. So it affects the way I approach things. I have to work quickly in short snippets and really look at things from like a macro level, go down to the granular details. So the way I approach Oblivion at a macro level is like, okay, first I need to sleep on it because there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot of production. It's great. It's like a lot of things happening at the same time. So you can't go try to overcook that. It's like you can't outproduce Andrew. So you have to take a different approach. I decided, okay, I saw the movie, so now I'm gonna make a trailer out of it. I'm gonna take the best parts and really tell a story and enhance what's already there. Okay, so here we are in Logic. What I did from a macro point of view, I picked out all the parts that I liked the most, and I thought that could tell the best story and I put them into different places. So I rearranged some parts so you'd see like let's say the vocals are a different place, the solo is a different place. It makes for a different type of story, you know. So the bass and drums I think I kept pretty much the same, but I did a lot of like automation and stuff. There's a lot of automation in these tracks in general. Any track you could just like pick one and if I cycle through the automation, you'll just see just like a ton of stuff, you know. So yeah, automation is kind of my thing. So another thing I did to speed up the workflow is I labeled pretty much everything. So if I have 10 minutes today, I could work on this. If I have 10 minutes tomorrow, I could work on this, and I kind of keeps everything organized so I can quickly get back to where I was in the groove the previous day. So for the intro part, what I did was to me there was some really heavenly vocals, so I made it almost like a dream sequence, you know. So I put in some choirs and some strings, a little bass pad just to kind of fill things out. I also started bringing the main theme, the main synth, and some of the arps from I think it was somewhere in the end, just to kind of familiarize the listener with stuff before it comes back again. So for the next sequence, I kind of brought in the main theme. It's like a bit of slap in the face, like you know, you wake up like whoa, whoa, whoo. Actually, there's a bit of a whoo in there. I think Andrew had it somewhere in the middle or the end, and I stuck it in the beginning because it's like whoo. I just woke up, you know. So I decided not to mess with this section too much because I was like, I wanted to establish like the main vibe, the main theme. So the vocal part here is where things start to get a bit interesting. The vocals were already pretty processed, so I was like, okay, what if we sweeten it a bit? What if we take it to the next level and enhance some of the things that the vocals are about? I think I used a lot of manipulator. That was pretty good for that, and I pretty much just kind of brought different manipulators in and out at different levels at different times. So it came out pretty interesting. A lot of the other instruments, I kind of filtered them or faded them in and out and stuff to make room for the vocal to breathe a bit. I do want to make note of is I use a transit quite a bit. Transit actually saved my production because I was at a point I was like, oh man, I'm hearing things in my head and I want to get to a point I just don't know how to get there. It's going to take too much time. And then Transit came out. I was like, oh, this is so perfect. So I put it in a bunch of different sections for transitions as well as like for effects and sometimes just to give the vocals space to breathe. Like for example, this main synth part, I just put in a bunch of transit and brought it in different amounts, different times, that kind of stuff, and it works great. It works great. So it's a real lifesaver. It's gonna save me a ton of time in the future as well. So thank you, Andrew. So this sequence, I thought it was almost like daydreaming, you know. So I try to make the vocals seem that way, you know, like, hey, my mind is all over the place. It sounds kind of like this. So I also used some of his vocals as like a transition effect as well, and I also brought in some stuff like some brass sections, some strings, just to kind of enhance that daydreamy effect. But there was this really cool little bass lick that I was like, that is too cool to just like not be a focal point. So it was like this. I thought, hey, what if we lead a section with that, you know? So it sounded pretty cool. So I thought it would be kind of funny and cool if I brought in some brass to like accent some parts. Almost sound like, you know, one of those big band kind of 50s classics. Here's what it sounds like. For the next section, it's almost like, hey, what are those? Like aliens, man? You know, it gives like a, a thoughtful kind of vibe. So I want to bring some movement in there because it seemed a bit static without it. So you hear a bit of filters and stuff. The bass is kind of moving, pumping a bit. And we have some strings just to accent some parts. So the synth, uh, I kind of like where the synth and how it sounded. I was like, what if we put it in a different section? So I thought it worked really well here. It gave like almost like a kind of tension and release kind of thing. And then I was like, how could we enhance that even further? So I think I added some pitch shifts, uh, both up and down. And I was like, we could take this even further, man. So I think I added some pitch monster, and it just got monstrous. So I ended up cutting out a bit and filtering stuff and just adding a bunch of transits and stuff like that to give the vocal in the end more space to breathe, which is like here so. So you here there's a lot of stuff happening there. The synth is huge, so I try to cut out parts and give the vocal more space to breathe. I For the vocals, I think I also sent it to like a bunch of different buses, each one with different processing. Some of these are like shaper box, like time-based effects, flanges, drives, that kind of stuff. Each one is different, so it gives like a almost a washy sound, but it's like the sound is going all over the place. It's the vocal is just totally mangled at this point. So as far as plugins and processing, there's a lot of stuff going on as well. I had to bust the bass and drums together, which usually happens. Um, I ended up adding some like compression limiters because you had the drums a lot were in like one stereo file, so there was a lot of peaks and stuff, and I wanted to kind of smooth that out. I also wasn't able to get like the kick as a solo channel as it was just one stereo file. So what I did is I filtered out just the frequencies of where the kick would reside. I made that in a ghost track. I just sent it to no output. It's just a ghost track, so I could use that to sidechain other stuff. I also sent the drums to granular synth. It was pretty cool. It just gives it a little extra movement and vibe. Um, I used transit a bunch of times. I also use Shaperbox. I like the time-based effects and the volume stuff. It really helps solve a lot of mix-related issues quickly. So for the vocals, I use some pitch shifting. I also use some overdrive, a bit of soothe to like adjust and tame some frequencies that were kind of out there. Kind of tame some of the bass so that the drums could hit a bit harder. And, you know, like I also used to tame some of the cymbals and stuff. And I'm terrible at this.